Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Sustainable Library. So this week we are on week 11 of the Sustainable Living Challenge. Can you believe that we've been on this journey for 11 weeks? And as we start to get to a close in this whole sustainable living journey and process, I thought it was about time to start slowing down. So today we are talking about eco-anxiety. So what is eco-anxiety? Eco-anxiety is basically the feelings of dread and being overwhelmed by the idea that you can't do anything about climate change. So I'm here to tell you guys today that that's not true. Yes, you feel overwhelmed and you feel extremely anxious about what's going on all around us and about the world, but you are making a difference. And that's why this week, in the 11th week or in the 11th step of this challenge, it's all about going back and kind of reflecting on what we've done. So I'm gonna share with you guys a bit of what I do when eco-anxiety strikes. The first thing I do when eco-anxiety strikes is to slow down. It's really, really important in general when you feel anxious to try and take a step back and slow down. So this weekend, for example, I spent quite a lot of time in the garden. I spent time cleaning my house. So I went back to doing things physically with my hands where I could see that I was having an impact. And in that way, I could translate these small changes or impacts that I was having on my house into impacts and changes that I was making in the greater world and in my life. The second thing I do when eco-anxiety strikes is to return to my yoga and meditation. I am a very active person. I've always been very active. I love running. Recently got into cycling and I've done some swimming, so I really love that. But the moment life becomes overwhelming, I need to go back to forms of exercise that stimulate me mentally as well as physically. And that's where yoga and meditation comes in. Meditation especially because it's a way for me to just take myself out of the situation that I'm in and focus on my breath. And I especially like mantra yogas. So focus on finding a mantra or an idea that I want to encourage for that day. So there are a few apps and tools that you can use. I tend to switch between the Headspace meditation app and YouTube, specifically a YouTube channel from Boho Beautiful, and I also do her yoga videos. And I'll link to both of those in the description below. But both of those have very different ways of meditation, very different styles, and they complement each other in different ways. So for me, starting my day off with that intention of just getting my head in the right space, especially when I feel anxious, is the best way to kind of once again take a step back and take control of all these anxious feelings in my brain and in my mind. Another thing I try to do whenever I feel eco-anxiety kind of set in is to get out into nature. So for a long time we lived in London, which was, London is densely populated, and even though you have parks around you, you still feel quite, overwhelmed. I grew up, a lot of my childhood was spent on a farm. So for me, whenever I feel anxious, and especially eco-anxiety, I want to see the horizon. So I go somewhere for a hike. And I've been so happy to see so many people back home in South Africa going for hikes now as lockdown starts to lift. And I think that's amazing because it just helps you to reconnect with nature. It also helps you see how nature can renew itself, especially if you go at certain times and during certain seasons. So for me, getting on the bike and going for a bike ride in the countryside or going for a hike, those are things where you can reconnect with nature. And once again, you can see, why am I doing this? Why am I making these changes? I'm not just making these changes for me. I'm making it for this planet, for this beautiful nature that feeds us. So yes, it's about reconnecting with nature and just losing yourself in it. And then even if it's just, half a day's hike or a few hours in nature, I promise you can come back and you'll feel rejuvenated and more connected to the world you're making all these changes for. Another really great way to combat eco-anxiety is to try and find inspiration in books and in people on social media that inspire you. Now, I have to say, sometimes when I get overwhelmed, I have to step away from social media, and that is just, we all know how overwhelming social media can be, but it can also be an amazing tool. So what I try to do is curate my feed only with people who inspire me. I have very different social media feeds. My Facebook is for my friends and family to catch up with them. But my Instagram, for me, is an inspirational platform. Maybe that's Pinterest for you. Maybe it's another platform, but it's about curating what gets put to you so that it's inspirational. Maybe that's, you going to a bookstore and buying yourself a lovely book that inspires you. Maybe it's subscribing to a newsletter that comes into your inbox every morning that inspires you. I love The Good Trade, and I'll link to that down below, with their really inspiring kind of notes and pieces to read and things to listen to. It's about finding that inspiration, finding the people that inspire you, and just, feeding yourself and your soul and your heart and your mind with those people, those accounts, and those things. And then finally, the final thing I do is to actually go and take some time and look at all the changes that I've made. This can be a simple thing like, if you use Instagram to document your journey, then it can be scrolling through your feed, it can be journaling, it can be photos that you've taken, it can be artwork that you've created, it can just be looking around your house and seeing all the changes that you've made. Maybe it's looking at your bank balance because you've saved so much money by, buying more sustainable products, buying more locally, eating more plant-based. So it's all about going and seeing what have you done. I hope that with this journey that you've been able to kind of document what you've done, and I know that I'll be able to look back on the last 12 weeks and say, these are the changes I've made, these are the things I've learned. And once you can see where you've come from, it's just absolutely incredible, and that gives you so much strength to continue. This will always be a journey. I spent a whole year learning what I thought was all about sustainable living. And then this last 12 weeks, I thought I was just going to, give you guys the same information that I did last year. And I learned so much more and pushed myself and, changed even more things. So it'll always be a journey, but the important thing is to reflect and to look back on the changes that you've made and the amazing positive impact that you've made in your life, but I'm almost 100% sure also in other people's lives around you. So those are just a few things that I do when eco-anxiety strikes. It's never a nice feeling to be overwhelmed, and especially not when you're trying your best to make a change, to live a different kind of life. But just know that it's going to strike because you care. That's the main thing. If you didn't care, then why would you be feeling anxious? So because you care so much for the planet, for the future of this planet and of future generations, that's why this is kind of pinched in your heart. So I really, really hope that these tips will help you find a bit of peace and comfort. And I hope that during this step or this week in the challenge that you can find ways to reflect and to, just look back on all the amazing things that you've done. So thank you guys so much for spending another week with me. And until next time, let's all live sustainably.